from this DNA, it was a private data bank, but I had to reestablish it because the people that I put in it did not realize that I was going to make it public. Probably in another year or so, I'm actually the library chair for the African American Historical and Genealogical Society, their 400th commemoration. And being the library chair, I am putting a collection of books in every library across America that allows people to trace their ancestors back to these first Africans. With that, we did a documentary back on June 1st. That will be there for you to sit and watch. There will also be this DNA data bank that I'm doing because I'm going to turn it over to the African American Historical and Genealogical Society. And it will be where you can walk in any library in America, put your raw DNA data in it, which you can download from any of these DNA sites. It doesn't matter if it's Ancestry, 23andMe, FT, whatever it is, you have a place where you can download that raw DNA. You can take that, upload it into the computer at any one of these libraries, and you will know if you are a direct descendant of any of these Africans. Currently, I have DNA verified on 8 of these Africans. So, now what I want to point out is, and this chart is based on a 30-year interval. So if you go all the way back to 1620, which is where we're dealing with, we're back 11 generations, and there's 4,094 descendants, or ancestors that you have, descendants. If you pop this down to a 20-year interval, and I use 30 because earlier in the 1600s, there was a 30-year gap that you saw. It was a much bigger spread of time before people had children. So I use that, but if you use a 20-year like most people do, you're going to have over 15,000 ancestors in 1620. So I'm going to be very conservative. Now with DNA, I have been told DNA has evolved because 4 or 5 years ago, people were telling me if you had a match and the match was very small, less than what's called 7.0 S&Ps, that match is nothing but static. They're saying, no, you don't match. Well, that's not true, and I have proven that, and now geneticists are coming around saying, okay, I guess, that's factual. Because if you look down at the very bottom, my husband, it would be his 9th great-grandparents, and he would have a very, very tiny amount of DNA, that 0.048828, that is a small, tiny bit of DNA. So what I have done is I have joined with a company, it's called MARA, it's Multi-Ethnic Heritage Research Associates, and they are genetic genealogists, and we are working to establish this database together. Now I want to show you, this is my DNA. Now from my DNA, the chart, and there's several different charts you can run. Now this is just one specific one that I happened to pull up for this presentation, but you can actually, like sub-Saharan at the very bottom, see the 3.38%? That's really West African Bantu DNA. When you go to a different program, it'll show you what it is, but for this meaning, it's so you can see that that's, the African DNA. I couldn't verify looking at this, what I'm looking at. But then if you break it down into every single chromosome, each chromosome gives you 100% of what's on that chromosome. And if you look at the bottom, there's actually a lot of sub-Saharan on those chromosomes, and it gives us a lot more to deal with. On chromosome 14, if you notice, there's 14.2%, and that's a lot that you can actually look at and deal with. And so we have been able to establish through these small singular nucleotide polymorphisms that these, which are markers, that we can trace this DNA. In this book, which is one of the partners with Mara, this is one of the genetic genealogists, she put this out and I helped her with it. But we actually have Benjamin Dahl, remember the one I told you about that had the legal knowledge and was for the white woman? We have his DNA, and it talks in this book of how we determined what it was, the paths that we took. There's all kinds of charts in this book that allows you to get there. But if you look at the big picture, I want to tell you, everyone in this room is related. It may take 35 generations, but if you look on his 35 great-grandparents, you have 274 billion grandparents. And at that point, we are all related. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you have questions about any of the information that I've given out, these books, the series tells the story of the first Africans from 1618 in their hometown of Kabasa, all the way till 1672, where one of the main characters, which is Margaret Cornish, she falls off the map. I cannot find her any longer. And in 1672, she's actually exempt from paying taxes, and that's the last document that I find in it. Now, there is one more book. I know when he introduced me, he said this is the last of the trilogy. There is one more book coming out, and it is the Research Companion. It's about 1,000 pages, and it tells about every single person in the trilogy. They're all factual people, real places, and real events. And all of that information is in the Research Companion. As a genealogist, I had a really hard time putting out a fiction series. The reason it is fiction is because it's written in first person. But everybody in that book was a real person in that real place. If it was on a ship, I had to have a name and see that person on that ship for him to be in this book. So a lot of the book is about 90% factual, but because, like I said, I wrote it in first person because I wanted you to feel it. I wrote it originally as nonfiction, and I absolutely hated it. You couldn't feel the pain that these people went through. You couldn't feel. It tells you now you have smells. You know what the trees look like. You know how they got to point A to Z. You feel this when they're in the native uprising. If there's a splatter of blood that hits one of their face, you feel their pain and their fear. And that's what I really wanted to convey, and that's what's conveyed in the series. Now, out of the Research Companion, I released in May, it was called Unveiled the 20 and Odd, and it has all of the information specifically on the first Africans. The Research Companion has the entire book, which has both European and African in it. But I took the Unveiled, and that's why I mentioned it, from the Research Companion. So if you have any questions for me, I know you. Yes.